Here we are. This is Fred Talks number 5, part 2. Today I'm going to discuss with you and show you by example how I'm using proficiency scales, how I'm trying to develop criteria with kids in my law class, and then how that process looks through the process of translating the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and tying it all in to core competencies. So I'm going to be hopping around a bit on my screen as usual. So I'm going to bounce around to some of the ideas that we've already discussed in the previous video. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll get going. Good morning, Rusty. Are you ready to learn? Great. All right. So I've got a bunch of screens open here, and one of the ones I want to start with is from the framework for assessment, which I chatted about in the first video, because this is one of the key things to understand. And while this is applied, this particular framework, to science, English, socials, and math, it really applies to all the subjects. And in a future video, I'm going to be tying this into the provincial assessments and talking about how we are all supposed to be teaching critical thinking. So for my law class, one thing I want to emphasize is inquiry and questioning, evidence and interpretation, analysis, ethics and decision-making, communication, and justification. So those are very broad kind of statements, but they tie in directly to my topic, which is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So when I look at my Law 12 curriculum, and again, we see how it's structured, core competencies at the top, the big ideas. And obviously one of the big ideas we're looking at with the translation of the Charter is understanding legal rights and responsibilities allows citizens to participate more fully in society. That's a big idea. All these actually apply to the Charter. Laws can maintain the status quo and can also be a force for change. Society's laws and legal framework affect many aspects of people's daily lives, and laws are interpreted, and these interpretations may evolve over time as a society's values and worldviews change. So all those directly feed into my project of the Charter. So that when we start to look at the curricular competency that I'm going to focus on, it is going to be things like that. So if I go to elaborations here, it's going to expand upon some of these discussions. And one of the ones I'll focus on right away is assess and compare the significance and impact of legal systems or codes. Sample activities. Assess the significance of the Constitution Act 1982 and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to human rights in Canada. So that ties right into the curriculum over here. The content, sorry. Students are expected to know the following: the Constitution of Canada and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So this project that I have them do in translating is multifaceted. And the Charter, of course, to be a Canadian citizen, applies across all aspects of the law, criminal, civil, it's all a part of it. And so understanding that is a key thing for my law class. And it's why I do it in the first third of the course. This whole project I'm going to show you revolves around the first third of my course. And then it spills into the other areas, and it spills into the topics that the kids are presenting to each other, because several of the topics are related to the Charter. So if we go down and we see some other things that we want to emphasize in the curricular competencies, you're looking at various things around rights and freedoms, human rights rulings here. Consider how laws affect society and how society affects laws. This ties right into the Charter and how it's understood. So really, this exercise leads me through pretty much all of the big 6 historical concepts related to the Charter. So I'm going to explain the assignment to you by looking at the charter itself, you see it here. It's a very complicated document, actually. There are 15 major vocabulary words in here that people don't understand. For example, do you know what abrogate and derogate means? Do you really know what notwithstanding means? And certain clauses like the equality clause and the phrase in particular. And of course, working our way through the other sections, this is a pretty big challenge for students. And it's one I really enjoy going through with them. And by the end, they really enjoy it because guess what? It ties right back to the core competencies. When I start this exercise, I'll bring up the core competencies and I'll say to students, tell me what you think about being a citizen of Canada right now. Do you know your rights and freedoms? Do you know your responsibilities to other people? And then after I do this exercise with them, I come back to these personal awareness and social awareness and responsibility and positive and talk about this with students and say, what do you think now? How has the charter, how has learning what the charter actually says affected your understanding of being a citizen? And they can document it, or it could just be a conversation. But whatever you do, it's a great process for me to kind of tie a ribbon around this project. So if we go back here, I'm going to go to my drive right now and load what I think is one of the best things a student has ever shared with me. Props to Kara Kimmy. Kara shared this document with me when we did this project about 5 years ago. And I'd been doing it for years, ever since I taught law. But she brought this back and shared it with the class, which was the charter emptied of all the wording so that students could use it as their framework to fill in this project. So a couple other things I go over with kids here. You know, what does the project entail? Well, this is where we develop the criteria together. So one of the forms that I highly encourage you to take a look at, because this is applicable to so many subject areas, anytime you have a big project that you're doing, and we all have those, right? We all have cornerstone projects that we're doing in classes right now. And all you have to do is tweak it a little bit, and you will be falling into line with pretty much what the new curriculum is asking, right? Either co-creating criteria or developing criteria in a way that the kids see and understand. And it's at the highest possible levels, hopefully, although not always. It's going to be a checklist sometimes, but also having them understand that they need to self-evaluate. How did you do on this part of the project or the assignment, the exercise, the equation, you know, the sculpture, the machine repair, the woodworking project, the music bit, the performance, the volleyball spike, you know, whatever you're looking at here, you can develop with students. And so I really like the single point. You know, here are concerns, the criteria goes down the middle, and then advanced is here. These are where kids are really hitting it out of the ballpark. So I bring this up on the screen with my law class and I say, okay, I outline what I want the project to look like, and then I'll say, what do you think the criteria should look like? And so then it becomes a negotiation where we pretty much say to each other and agree with each other what it's going to look like. And so here is the result of this particular exercise. These are me, these are the students in my first quarter law class and me agreeing on these types of things. So you have to initial your part of the translation because this was a group project, 2 to 3 people. You had to do your fair share of the work. You had to have clear and legible writing so I could read it. And you had to have self and peer evaluation out of 4 using the proficiency scale. So I go over the proficiency scale with the kids. And again, remember what it looks like. It's over here. The idea, again, that emerging is weak, but starting. Developing is kind of a C. If you go down here, you see the marks related to these proficiencies. 3 is proficient, you know, complete understanding of the concepts and competencies related to the expected learning, but not spectacular. And then extending, which is pretty much an A, you know, anything over 86. If a kid's into the extending area, they are generally your A student. And then if you're going to put this in your mark book like I am now, all my assignments are out of 4 now. the kid's either a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I explain all this at the beginning of each semester, quarter, term, whatever. And they know this language, jargon, because it's being taught in K to 9. And many of them are just like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. And to me, it makes the teaching a bit easier, actually, because then I can use exemplars. I save lots of old projects, and I bring up lousy projects, and I'll say to kids, what's wrong with this project? After I go over a criteria, say for a presentation project. And then we have a discussion around what good looks like, what great looks like. And since I've been doing this, I would say, I started a lot of this in about 2010 when we changed schools. And I have obviously been doing far more of it in the last few years. This combined with the Dylan William workshops is really tweaking my teaching, and I'm finding better results. For example, with this charter exercise, I am getting the best results I've ever seen because of this process of engaging the kids in creating the criteria. The last piece of criteria, accuracy of the translation. Does it make sense? Have you clarified the charter section you translated? And then after they hand it in, they evaluate each other and themselves. And they do that by just writing their name on a Post-it note. They write their name and their mark out of 4, and they write their partner's names and what they think they should get out of 4. And then I secretly collect that, and I know what I've seen in class, and I can see the product at the end of the day, and it looks like this. This is a product of a group that worked on this, and they were okay. They basically did up to a 3. You'll see I gave them a 3 here, and they self-evaluated. And this is pretty much what it came in at. You'll see my descriptive comments, thin in spots, very thin, areas where they were weak. You'll see they initialed their document here. So this process is actually very effective because at the end of the day, the kid knows the criteria because they helped build it. They self-evaluate because they know how much work they've done. And then I pretty much come in and make sure it's a fair mark. And it's always amazing to me that the kids are pretty honest with themselves. Now, let me show you some outstanding work. This is this is a 4+ by a group of 3 ladies in my Law 12 class. This is fantastic. This is just the front, right? There's 2 sides to this. This is very detailed. Notice their initials are on the sections that they translated, and the process becomes one of they really buy in more when they help with the creation of the criteria, when they fully understand. And look at that. This is so well done, and it's all in their own words. So this project gets a huge wow, and a 4 out of 4, and that's an easy thing to mark. So it doesn't always have to go this way in terms of co-creating assignments, because I'm going to show you another document here. My history class, where is it? Here's my history class. In my history class, this is the single point rubric, and again, it's a bit of a checklist, but these are things that we don't negotiate. In this case, I know exactly what I want the kids to do. I don't want to negotiate with them on this one. And you'll find that too. If you're doing a project in one of your courses, you'll know exactly what you want the kid to do. And so you don't really need to encourage them by helping them co-create. And again, it's up to you. But for me, I know exactly what I want out of my major presentation in my history class. And so, yes, it's a bit of a checklist, right? Minimum 10 pages, triangle, square, circle, and bibliography. Pics on every page, 2 to 3 short and pointed videos. The who, what, where, when, why, how framework, 3 to 5 points in your own words. And then the big 6 historical concepts applied. A lot of that, for those of you still paying attention, is just sort of checklisty stuff. Do this, do this, do that. It's not that higher level thinking stuff. It's criteria 4 and 5, where that other chart that I showed you involving the higher level thinking comes into play. This framework for discussion, inquiry and questioning, evidence and interpretation, analysis, ethics and decision-making, communication and justification. That's exactly where that comes in my history project. And so at the end of it, I will hand this out to kids, and say, self-evaluate. What do you think you did on your project? And when they do their presentation, they also have to self-evaluate. And I evaluate, and then it's kind of a negotiation as to what their mark is. And through this process of co-creating, co-discussing, evaluating, peer feedback, teacher feedback, it becomes a loop that strengthens engagement. Since I've gone to this process, and I've been doing a lot of self-assessment since about 2010, I have far higher, I find, engagement levels in my class. Kids buy in because they're involved more. It's not top down, it's circular. And that makes a big difference. Okay, that's it for this presentation. The next one, and I'm going to include it in this email, this video series, I'm going to talk about how you can convert traditional marks into the 4-point scale and see how you could do that. Because I will argue this for a long, long time and going forward, and in the next video, I'll bring it up again. And that is, in a school like ours, where if you look at the class structures and the course structures, I would say 75% of our course could move to this kind of evaluation and assessment process overnight if people bought in and if people tried some of this stuff. And again, I realize you're stressed, you're busy, you're exhausted, and you don't have time. But I think if you pick and choose and start just with your pet project, like I did, the key projects that you're working on, the key sections of your course, key curricular competencies, you will see that you could start the process. And in the end, I think you'll enjoy it more. It takes a lot of pressure off generating that percentage or coming up with a mark when it's more of a collegial sort of coaching process with students. And I think you'll find your engagement levels go up. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video topic, which is going to be converting traditional into proficiency standard marks. Cheers. Thank you.